There are many different kinds of Canada geese wintering in the Pacific Northwest. Some have healthy populations, others do not. The ones that do not are protected by strict hunting regulations. This video will help you to correctly identify geese before you shoot. 3 different kinds of Canada geese frequent the Pacific Northwest and look somewhat alike. Cackling Canada geese are small, dark birds, only slightly larger than a mallard. Taverners Canada geese are medium-sized and light-colored. Tav populations are healthy. Dusky Canada geese are large, dark-colored geese. They winter only in our area. Their numbers are down greatly, and hunters should avoid shooting them. The so-called cackler has a short, stubby neck. The taverner has the slightly longer neck, and the dusky has a long neck. A second way of telling the birds apart is to look at coloration, especially at the base of the neck. Cackling geese have a dark breast. Taverners geese have a light breast that contrasts sharply with the black neck. Duskies have a dark breast, almost as dark as the neck. Another way of telling the birds apart is to look at the size of their bills. Cacklers have very short bills. Taverners have slightly longer bills, and dusky geese have long bills. Now let's look at some live birds. Notice the long necks and dark breasts of these 3 dusky geese. Here's a good side-by-side comparison. The dusky on the left has a dark neck and a dark breast. The tav on the right has a dark neck but a light breast. The lone taverner's goose in the left foreground has a much shorter neck in relation to his body than these dusky geese. It's more difficult to see the color differences in the bright sunshine, but when contrasted with this tav, the small size and stubby neck of this cackler is unmistakable. Duskies are easy to identify by their long necks and dark breasts. These taverner's geese have short necks and sharp color contrast between their necks and breasts. You can tell these are taverner's geese by their light breasts and short necks. Notice how difficult it is to see color patterns in the dark shadows. Don't be fooled by the bright sunlight. Long necks, dark breasts. Yes, these are duskies. More sunlight from a different angle, and more dusky geese. This group is tougher, but you should know these. Long necks with little contrast between the neck and the breast. These are dusky geese. Look carefully. Short neck, light breast that contrasts sharply with the black neck. That's right. These are Taverner's geese. In silhouette, the short neck makes tabs appear to have a long tail. Here they come, right at you. But what are they? Short neck, sharp contrast between the breast and neck. They're tabs. Here come two more. Listen to the high-pitched call. Do you hear it? The call of the cackler is distinctive and is the best way to identify cackling geese. A hunter's dream, close and sailing right over the decoys. But please don't shoot. These are dusky geese. A flock headed right at you. What are they? More duskies. Which ones are Taverner's geese? Sometimes even the experts can't tell. Better call this one unidentified. You call this group. Play it safe and call them unidentified. A sneaker from behind in the sunlight. Let this dusky go. This is a good spot. Here come two more. But listen up. These are cacklers. A pair of tricky ones in the bright sunlight. Take 'em. These are Taverner's geese. A single flyby. What are you going to do? You better call this one unidentified and pass up an easy shot. Better safe than sorry. Let these duskies go. and let these silhouettes go too. If you use binoculars when you hunt, you'll be able to identify geese before they get too close. Avoid making snap decisions at the last instant, and don't shoot unless you're absolutely sure of your target. Practice identifying geese whenever you're in the field. The real secret to developing your skill is practice. 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 Study and review this video between hunting trips to help you fix a mental image of each of the races of geese. Good hunting, and keep your powder dry.
By now, it should be fairly obvious that goose hunters and wildlife managers alike must continue to work together to protect dusky Canada geese. If we are successful in our cooperative efforts, we will continue to enjoy goose hunting as a wildlife management tool. In the worst-case scenario, if we fail, goose hunting in Northwest Oregon and Southwest Washington will cease in order to provide greater protection for a declining subspecies, and crop depredation will likely increase. Depredation, that is damage caused when increasingly large flocks of birds feed in fields with standing crops, is a serious problem, and landowners, too, want to ensure continued, stable hunting season to minimize crop damage and financial loss. Season regulations are the means by which wildlife managers protect certain species while also providing hunting opportunity to goose hunters and addressing the depredation concerns of landowners. Just as wildlife populations will vary from year to year, so will goose hunting season rules and regulations. No 2 years are exactly the same. Some features of goose hunting in Northwest Oregon and Southwest Washington will remain unchanged for the foreseeable future, including restrictive bag limits on dusky Canada geese, special training for hunters, check station requirements, and a season quota on dusky Canada geese for each state. These regulations are needed to ensure that the take of dusky Canada geese will remain within acceptable biological limits, and that hunting will not cause the population to decline further. Again, if the dusky population declines to critical levels, hunting will be more severely restricted or totally eliminated. It's important for all goose hunters to remember that waterfowl seasons are set cooperatively among states, working under general guidelines developed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Oregon and Washington, in conjunction with other states within the Pacific Flyway, set annual waterfowl hunting seasons in August, following guidelines prepared by the Fish and Wildlife Service in late July. Of course, Alaskans are very interested in management programs affecting goose populations on wintering grounds. Public input is welcome during the season-setting process, but all season recommendations must meet the general guidelines set by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. In recent years, in response to these challenging conditions facing waterfowl biologists, Oregon and Washington have proposed some new, experimental approaches to goose management to provide hunting recreation, while also minimizing damage and continuing protection of species in trouble. The hunting season model in the graph on the screen illustrates how biologists have tried to combine the objectives of minimizing damage, continuing protection, and promoting recreation. Even if you are completely new to goose hunting, you can see from the previous chart that goose management today in Northwest Oregon and Southwest Washington is complex and certainly quite different from other goose hunting areas in the two states. Many people, including hunters and landowners, would like to see a simple solution to meet everyone's needs. The sad truth, however, is that there is no quick fix, no simple solution, and no magic formula. Oregon and Washington wildlife managers have been working closely together for years in conjunction with landowners, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service staff, and hunters to help fashion a consistent approach to goose management that will best satisfy a variety of competing interests. We need the continuing support of you and your fellow hunters to help ensure success. This revised training program you are now enrolled in is but one element of our cooperative approach. Remember that the only other alternative is a closed season for all Canada goose hunting. As mentioned during the early part of this video program, it is difficult to distinguish among geese. The truth is that there is no 100% certain way to identify all subspecies of geese when they are in the air. If there is an identity question while hunting, the only responsible action is to let the geese pass. 3 simple rules to follow for all hunters are practice, practice, practice in order to improve your goose identification skills. With practice, it becomes easier to identify species with greater precision, and it helps build your confidence. What if you're not a very experienced goose hunter? What can you do? Well, first of all, consider hunting with only experienced hunters. 2 or 3 inexperienced hunters will probably not help each other improve their goose identification skills. However, joining a skilled hunter afield will pay dividends that will help develop your skills and confidence. Also, regardless of your goose hunting experience, consider using binoculars to help in goose identification. Lighting and weather conditions such as fog or rain limit ability to clearly identify birds. Even with good eyesight, all hunters should take advantage of binoculars to get a better view. One way for experienced and inexperienced hunters alike to improve identification skills is to go to a local refuge. Spend some time in the blinds, talk to the area manager, and practice, practice, practice. Look for neck-collared birds to use as a reference. Review your training materials before, during, and after the hunting season. These course materials are one sure way for every hunter to learn more. Please take this material seriously. The future of goose hunting depends upon your cooperation. Finally, practice restraint in hunting situations. Allow birds to work your decoys and get in close, where there's a better chance to improve identification of the birds coming in. Far better to let birds break off and fly away than to mistakenly add a dusky Canada goose to your bag. Although mistakes do happen, it is your job to develop the necessary skills to distinguish birds in the air. When in doubt, don't shoot.
Too dark.
Pat Miller, area wildlife biologist with the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, offers these tips regarding identification in the field.
A field such as this one, where it's a fairly large open field and there's not a lot of things in the center of the field where the birds are not spooked away, will work pretty well when you're trying to attract taverners and lessers. On the other hand, if you hunt a spot where there's lots of brush and tree line and you're sitting up in a pond near there, that's a spot that the dusky is more likely to come to. Taverners tend to be a little bit more wary. They tend to circle fields more. Taverners will also sometimes fly in fairly large flocks, 300 or 400 or more. Duskies can be in fairly small flocks, sometimes as few as 40 or 50. It's important to remember that there's nothing ironclad in any of this. Duskies and all of the subspecies intermingle, and because of that, you can't just assume because you're hunting an open field that there won't be any duskies present. But behavior and the kinds of fields that they use can be important assets to you. The other thing is that duskies will have a tendency to decoy pretty readily. If you, I've personally experienced situations where I'm watching a large flock of birds and suddenly I have geese in my decoy, and they turn out to be the wrong ones. They're often duskies, or sometimes they're cacklers. They're not very wary. They'll come right in.
The following segment describes what to expect at a check station and the importance of bringing birds to check stations.